So, if you recall, we had left off, we kind of briefly covered what are called our special revenue funds. And one of the things Joel did point out is that we received about $500,000 of opioid settlement funds. We're going to receive those in the 14, 13-ish years. And it's differing amounts, but we're trying to find creative and useful ways of using that money that takes a little bit of burden off the general fund. And one of the things that we'll be able to do this year maybe is I mentioned, potentially using some of those proceeds to fund those 40-hour fire officer positions. So want to cover that, and I don't know if anybody has any other questions about any of the special revenue funds, but I wanted the next point of interest is obviously our capital fund, which the actual funded data is on 252 and 253, but the on this particular page under the 2026 budget, it'd be on page 2-53. I did want to point out that on the first line on the 2026 budget, it's called intergovernmental revenues. Those intergovernmental revenues are grants, and they are, the big one is $1,750,000 for the bike path. That would be on, I think it's called our phase 3, Milltown between Cleveland Road and Friendsville, right, Jonathan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's a reimbursement for that grant, so if the project gets completed next year, we'll receive the $1.75 million. It's quite possible that it could go next year. Anyway, so that's the big one, the bike path, and we've got ODOT paving for $200K. We've got some monies for the hospital roundabout, I think for $250,000 state monies, and there's some Silver Road monies that we're going to come. We've already done Silver Road, but the reimbursement grant that we're going to receive next year for that. So anyway, that I wanted to point out that $2.6 million there is grants. And then for the rest of the forecast, I forecast our ODOT large city monies in there at $500,000. That's what that is, just to be consistent. So with that being said, section 3 is our capital projects that we have listed there. I did want to point out a few things here. The first section, consider like on page 3-2 through 3-5 is what we consider our equipment, buildings, and grounds. But if you'll see here, I believe there are approximately 23 projects or pieces of equipment on these pages. I just want to point out a couple of the large items. The first one is on 3-2. We're replacing a medic unit, or I guess advanced life support ambulance, I guess those are called. I think they're medics these days. $410,000. Another thing, we're on the page 3-3.
Hey, excuse me, Andre, is that just the back end of it, or is it the chassis and everything?
I think that's the whole thing, chassis and.
Oh, okay, so we finally have used the chassis up, we can't just,
We just got a remount in
Right.
a couple of months ago.
And then on the next page, and again, I'll just point out some of the big ones, but we are going to reinvest in the community center and replace the roof on that. You'll see that's $100K on page 3-3. And IT below that, in the middle of the page, for a couple $100,000 for server storage or IT infrastructure. I believe below that in our public properties maintenance division, perhaps Mr. Denning has a 10-ton single axle dump truck for $250K, and then Parks has a couple pickup trucks, and then another big item below that even is our leaf loader machine for $110K. This government stuff's kind of expensive when you're processing, aggregates and leaves and all that sort of stuff. And then on the next page, which is 3-4, a couple other things I just would point out. We got some pumps we're replacing at our water pollution control plant. Super expensive, $250,000. We're doing below that, down below that, $150,000. We're doing the Cleveland Road North Lift Station rehabilitation for $150,000. And then I think the last one I wanted to point out was toward the bottom of the page, it's split between water and sewer, utility truck and bed for $145,000 there. So all told, we got about just under $600,000 coming out of our general fund for capital, for these equipment items. There's $860,000 coming out of our capital fund. There's $185,000 of the water fund and $535,000 of the sanitary sewer fund for just under $2.3 million for these projects. And that's just the equipment. If you flip over one page and go to 3-7, you'll see, and again, and Joel, you can pipe in, I don't, there's a lot of operation stuff, but I get excited about this sort of stuff, so. Big one, let's see, how many projects, I think we have 40, is it 43 maybe on this? 51 items here, sorry. So there's about 51 items on here, and most of these items you will see again, they'll come to you because you'll have to vote on them. So, I mean, like the sidewalk improvements, we have 75,000 budget for that. That's not for one sidewalk project, that's for, you know, here and there. So you obviously you won't be voting on that sort of stuff, but you will vote on this, the large one here, or I think you already did the bike path phase 3, you already voted on that, but there's $2,150,000, and I said $1.75 million we're gonna get the grant for that. There's another big one there. Another big one that that we're just doing is some, these State Route 302 pedestrian improvements. Let's see what else we have here. So we're doing a bunch of these. You'll see the curb improvements below that for our 27 paving program. To get federal dollars, you have to bring the curb ramps up to federal standards. So you see there's $500,000 there just in curb ramps, which is pretty amazing, right?
Andre, the one thing I do want to point out on
Go ahead, keep going.
the 302 pedestrian improvements, you notice it says ODOT safety, so we got a grant for that. So, and that's only a piece of the grant. We got a bigger grant to do
The
construction, but that's not allocated until 2027, so.
And then another thing I want to point out was the North Street parking lot expansion. I don't know if Joel wants to, anything else about that?
So that's the one, I don't know if you remember, we acquired a couple parcels over time, that's right adjacent to the substation, north of JFD. There were a couple different parcels we acquired at a couple different times over the last year or two. And so it's in our plan to upgrade that a little bit, make it more like a city lot, and put some landscaping there between the lot and the substation.
And in the budget, of course, is at the bottom there, the Gashi Street, Wayne to Winter improvements, which will involve obviously storm sewer and some street improvements there too. So next page, you'll see there's a bunch of paving on these projects. And sort of broken down into the top part, you see we get ODOT, that large cities money for those. There's also a section 3 below there that PPM will be doing. Our own guys will be paving, about $150,000 paving there.
Very
Yes, sir, go ahead, yeah, you talk about those.
Point out, the reason why there's only 2 on that list under the PPM 2026 is those are the ones we anticipate to be 75,000 or above. There's a few more on the list.
Oh, right.
But they'd be under that amount, so they're in the O&M budget this time. That's just why, just because there's only 2 doesn't mean we're doing some other small improvements.
Let's see, the other big one up down here was right in the middle of the page. You still see the downtown streetscape phase 7 on the Arts District. Talk more about this, but that was another big one, $675,000 project.
Andre, what's 3-8 Bell Avenue parking lot expansion?
So, I don't know what that is.
Well, that's, okay, maybe I got the North Street.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah, you're right.
Previously
It's
described
across,
as
right.
not North Street.
So we acquired, and was donated that property just south of JFB, that sort of strip there. That's the Bell Avenue portion. And then North Street is obviously on North Street.
So North Street is the one, we purchased a couple houses
Right.
a couple years
Yeah.
ago, adjacent to the existing lot, so that's what we're sorry, I got to.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just, from maybe Drew wasn't here before, we like to have the parking behind the front of the street, so if the city can have the parking just off of, not right on, say, Liberty Street, then that frees up, those properties, when they develop, there's that land tax, on the corner of the northeast corner. If there's some interest in developing that, we can provide the parking just off of that, adjacent to that, and they, those properties become more attractive for development. They can fill it up with development, not take it up with the.
And then since we're here, we're gonna cover water sewer in the section 2 point, but since we're here, they're all listed here. I mean, I don't know what Joel wants to point out, but I just like to point out the large ones, and I know we have, in the water side, we have the large one, it's on page 3-9, in the middle of the page, it's called S5, it's well S5 construction, it's $1 million project. I also want to point out, so thanks to the hard work of Mike Fritz, and he filled out, you get these random lawsuits about PFAS stuff. He filled out some paperwork for us, and because of that, it's what's $2.4 million we're gonna receive? And that's, because of that PFAS settlement with DuPont and all these other large companies, that'll pay for our construction of S4 and S5 well, basically. And the other nifty thing about that is we got a 0 interest 20-year loan. So think about it, somebody said, hey, I'm gonna give you whatever, $750,000, and I'm also gonna give you a 0 interest $750,000 loan. Not a bad deal, right? Leverage that. So
Best kind, free.
there was that one, and as far as the sewer project goes, there are nothing like 7 figures on here because we're still having a bunch of construction of the plant. But we've done, I don't know, $23 million over the last 3 years of the plant. And I don't know, Joel, if you specifically wanted to go over any of the smaller, smaller being $500,000 and 375 projects here, but it's a spot.
A lot of it's cyclical. So I went back and looked at 2025, just to give you an idea. If you look at 3-10, down at the bottom, you see where we have it summarized by capital improvement, water lines, water treatment. So for instance, under the water lines, in 2025, I believe we did about $5 million, where, we're doing 1.2. In water plant, we did only did about $400,000 last year. We got a little bit more, about 2.2. And it's just the cyclical nature of things down there. Overall, just for comparison, the total infrastructure we had budgeted for 2025 is $23.9 million compared to the $14.6 that we had budgeted for 2025. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of that was the Christmas run pool that we didn't do, which is now in 2026.
So the Christmas run was budgeted this
Yeah.
year and it got covered this year.
25.
Yeah, it's not in this budget.
So still a lot of capital, but not quite as much as we did last year.
Yeah, actually, I just saw the PO this morning for Christmas run,
Yeah.
$5.5 million.
What's the Freelander pool renovation is listed on? I see it's insignificant by comparison to expensive Christmas run, but it's still $200,000.
Yeah, that's for all the design work for the bathhouse.
The Freelander?
Oh, no, this was
I'm
the
sorry.
previous, yeah.
Like,
She-
It's on 3.9, about a quarter of the way down.
Yeah, it's on the parks, it's like the fifth one down, 3.9, fifth one down,
That's for design.
Oh, yeah, oh, no, there's,
At Freelander,
oh, yeah, both say restaurant renovation, oh, that's $30 grand for restaurant renovation.
this one's 200,000 Freelander pool renovation.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
that-
yeah,
that is
yeah,
for the
that's
design and
recreation,
engineering
yeah,
for
yeah.
eventually. It's on, looked on our 10-year plan, Freelander's been on there for a while. It
Okay.
Also needs some upgrades. So
Okay.
that's
I just don't want to undertake that anytime soon.
No, I mean, but probably for the next 2, 3, 4 years, we'll be looking at doing something. And then Christmas Run, there's money in there for the design work. Schoolhouse back. So that's on 3 days.
So we're budgeting $100,000 to do the restroom renovation at Christmas Run, but we're spending $200,000 for engineering for the bathhouse renovations.
I'm sorry, where are you looking at? 100?
Okay, well, there's 100, Christmas Run, Park, Finn, restroom.
That's the Finn Pavilion and the restroom over there. That would be a full.
Okay.
Yeah.
All good questions. So if you're keeping track on page 3-10, where's this money coming from? The middle of the page, you see the SCM&R, that's our street construction maintenance repair fund. That would be what I highlighted earlier as a special revenue fund. You can only spend that money on street construction, maintenance, repair. So 50,000 towards some of these will go toward that. 8.4 million is coming from our capital fund, 3.5 water fund, about 1.5 is from our sanitary sewer fund, and then we're doing about just under $1.2 million in sanitary, storm water projects. So a total of 14.6 million in that. And then of course, if you add to all the other capital projects, you get the grand total of 16, well, just under $17 million with a capital project. And like Joel said, that can fluctuate, I mean, by $10 million based on what has happened during the year. But we've consistently reinvested in our infrastructure. If there's any questions about that, we'd be happy to entertain that. If not, I said we go to the water fund, which is in that 2 section again. It would be specifically 2 -54, I believe. Let me see. My memory serves me. Yes, 2.4. And I'm not having to speak for Joel, but I don't think there are any new like projects in budget here. It's just business as usual, other than, of course, we're gonna get 2 new wells online, 2 water wells. And so, and I always talk about the compounding annual growth rate. Not always, but that's what I like to talk about. So historically, if you take a look at our water fund, and you look at our rate structure over, since 2015, our compounding annual growth rate and that rate structure is an even 3%. Interestingly enough, our billings over that same, and that's because of usage, are a compounding annual growth rate of 5.7%. And I just say that to say, that so I do my conservative revenue estimates. So for 27 through 30, I did a 2.5% CAGR. And then overall, you'll see the revenues themselves, or if you do the calculations, about 1.4% compound annual growth rate. So, and then on the other side of things, I look at the expenditure side. I grow personal services a little higher at about 5% CAGR. The O&M at 2.5% CAGR, and then overall, that's about 1.7% CAGR. Amy likes to use the term CAGR.
I say, you really are enjoying kegger.
I am, sorry. So anyway, so other than that, there's, where the water fund is doing well. I mean, we're generating enough revenues basically, essentially to pay for not only just the maintenance, the operating of it, but also our capital and our debt service, which obviously is what it's intended to do.
Just a
Go
couple,
ahead. I know Joel's got
just
some
some points
fun
of
stuff.
context, looking at the water fund, we always look at, what are some of the major differences from previous years, just to keep track of that. I mentioned, some things are cyclical, so a couple things on the agenda, that'll probably be O and M, but still are significant costs, like our high-duty pumps, the large pumps down at the plant, are due to be either reworked or replaced. Those are $25,000. So just give you an idea of what some of those things cost. But and again, that's cyclical, only every so many years, but we do have that plan for this year. You probably remember not that long ago, a month or two ago, you had authorized the bid for our chemicals. And our CO2 came in, and hypochlorite came in a little bit less, but those are small in volume. Our lime came in at a 19% increase. And I went back and looked, since 2020, so 2020, 2025, 150% increase in lime, and that's like a $700,000 expenditure. There's only two or three entities that even do it, so it's a bit of a monopoly, but, we really don't have a choice. That's our main chemical. Just to give you an idea. On the sewer side, one of the things we are planning on doing a lot more of, really concentrated effort is some of the sewer line cleaning and root removal and lighting. You guys had approved a bid for the one along Christmas Front Interceptor, so that's going to be the first one. We have multiple ones on a smaller scale, but just to give you an idea of what that we're going to focus on more ads for Owen.
And then the only thing I wanted to say about water is I think I only budgeted for 26, I budgeted about a 0.5% increase in our charging for services, and that's basically demand-based. So Daryl and we have this giant rate model. Daryl's got a 17,000 row spreadsheet, and he will get with Joel. He and Joel will go back and forth for about 2 months, and then come to you with some rates. It's always a fun time. It's like watching these two play pickleball. So the point being is, more than likely, if it's determined that rates, gonna have to go up 1 or 2%, that I got 0.5% there, would come in 1 or 2% higher, you never know. That's pretty much what I have water fund ways. Unless any questions, we can turn to the next page, which is our wastewater fund. And so just, again, historically, if you look back 2015 through 2024, our compounded annual growth rate, Amy, has been 3.5% on our rates for the sewer side. And strangely enough, very similar on our billing side, or our compounded annual growth rate on that side is 5.6 versus 5.7 on the water side. Again, that's because of usage. Well, mainly, obviously. Similar, again, I think I might budget 0.5% on the revenues for 26, and then I did I think a 1.7%. I just smaller annual growth rate, just slightly smaller for the revenues on the water pollution control side. And I actually think I did a higher O&M on sewer, because it seems like our chemicals, seem to run high in sewer. I think I used a 5.3% growth rate for that. But again, overall, both funds are well. I mean, they're doing what they're budgeted, how they should, to pay for, the revenues generated to pay for, again, the expenses of operating, of the capital, and of course, paying for the debt service on these. And you'll notice, so if you look at 2027, on page 257, we have some debt service paying off in 2027. So you'll see a fairly significant drop from 2.3 million to 1.9 million, and like the fifth line down in the expenditures. So we go 2.275 to 1.89 million dollars. So again, provides a little extra money that we can put toward our capital improvements. And I don't know, do you have any other, Joey probably has a couple items on there, right?
The only thing I wanted to point out, if you look at that 2.56, 2.57, the forecast and the budgeted, is pretty darn close, just about everybody, other than revenues are a little bit more, which is good. And then the biggest, most significant difference you see between like 2025 and 2026 budgeted is in the capital items. Like I said, we've been spending a lot on capital over years, a little bit less there. So you see a good net there. Is the change in that position. 25 to 26.
And the only thing I would like to point on the next page is our storm drainage. So, under the capital on this, what I do here is, you'll see, I try to put a consistent, amount of, you see, we budgeted 1.285 million in 2026. I have consistent 300,000 for the 27 through 30. What happens, I'm using that for consistency purposes, we may have we may decide to hold off for 2 years, you know what I mean, and do very little in capital because we know we have a big project in, 2030. So in reality, there's a chance, in 3 years, you might see a budget say, wait a minute, 1.2 million again budgeted for this field. And it fluctuates greatly. If you look historically speaking, 2022, we spent $1.1 million, then 340, then 8, then 130,000 for this year. So, and that's intentional. So that's just. And that's why those anomalies are there, those are intentional for the big projects and this storm drainage fund. Any other comments on storm drainage or anything?
No, I mean, it's set up to, spend what we get in on that.
Right.
So,
And then, I don't know, so on section seven, section 7, I provided, bond, what is section 6? Section 6, I provided our outstanding debt issuances. And as you can see there, in 2026, we're at 49 million, and by the time we get to 30, we're down to 36.6 million. A lot of debt paid off by then, so, which will only help, again, our cash flows and the, it's basically mainly the, utility funds. But, I think that's all I had, Jordan. Have anything? I mean, boring is good, just like in the military where they say slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Yes. Boring is good in government accounting and finance.
there is in here, just for informational purposes, a 10-year strategic infrastructure plan. Obviously, the further out you get, the less, definite some of those are. But we try to get together with all of our public works guys, put together a list of things we think or can anticipate. Some of it might be out there in the future. As you get a little closer, you get within 5 years, those things start to firm up a little bit more. We know what funding is, we know they're coordinating with other projects like water line, roadway. And so you get within 5 years, those are fairly likely costs, not definite, but likely things. That's just there to give you an idea of how we're looking, some of the things we're looking at in the future, and give you an idea, just some of the needs. As in general, the capital in the next 5 years, infrastructure, it's probably 20 million, if you divided that in there, just to give you an idea just of the overall needs. That's not out of the ordinary considering the amount of infrastructure we have. Water, give that to you so you can see that, participate.
Yeah, and just to emphasize, those projects, those are supporting documentation, so you're not technically voting on or approving those. Same with the December 26, so that and the future stuff, that will have to come back to you to be voted if it's over 75, and pretty much 98% or 95% of the items there are over $75,000 and will require council vote on approving those projects. Make sure everybody's clear of that. We also, I have Mr. Rohr here, Jason Rohr from the hospital. If you have any other questions regarding hospital matters as well, we're here for your questions for
Andre,
the next 25 minutes.
did we definitively decide to remove the line item for the roundabout?
So, here's what I'm prepared. I talked to Mr. Abernathy and Mark Sanders and said that I understood that there was some angst about the Winkler, Oldham, Burbank roundabout. I think Mr. Malta had a lot of record about striking it out. I said, well, you don't have to make an amendment. I said, truly, if you want it removed, I can update the sheet, remove it. I said, however, to make things easier on me, since all this stuff is intertwined, this is, I would prefer just to strike that and then put the money somewhere else into one of the streets that we had cut to do concrete pavement. So that way I don't have to change neither sheets, pages. So I have, and all it is it would be a revised sheet, page 3-7. If that's
Okay.
something the committee would like, I can.
I just wanted
I can
to,
get that to you, and you can put that in there.
I just wanted it on the record so
Yeah.
that it was out there, that the money was being reallocated away from that project to another. But I do want to make it clear to council, just because it is being removed from that line item does not mean that this issue will not come back up. If the project does, if the administration wants to pursue it still, they can still come to council potentially this upcoming fall or late summer as far as looking at funding for acquiring the rights to certain pieces of property. So this does not necessarily mean this is going away, but it is being removed from the budget, and they are reallocating funds to another project.
Who's punched down?
You already got it. It's not-
Thank you, sir. Just want to clarify,
So-
when there's a list of projects in the budget,
Mm-hmm.
you guys are approving the budget at appropriation level. You're not
And
approving
4.8
individual
and a
projects.
capital.
You
Understood.
can see what we're allocating.
What's that?
Says,
Something like that's
oh,
gonna have to come back. to
roundabout,
council regarding-
100,000.
It's got to come back.
I don't know.
It
Yep.
says TIF.
Well, that's a-
I don't know
at
who put
that
that
point,
there,
that
but
pledge,
that's.
you know,
Well,
you
probably
that doesn't
engineering.
match.
Yep.
to a project.
You're calling it a capital on 3.7, you're calling it a TIF fund on
Oh, yeah.
3.8.
At that point, you know.
Well, I don't know, that's a 10-year amount.
It's this year, 2026.
Nope, understood.
So my numbers are right.
What he's handing out is
So-
just an exhibit.
So then we got to not approve the budget till this gets fixed, if it's
But
not
you don't have
correct.
to approve the budget at all.
But why is it a TIF here and a capital
I don't know,
fund?
you'd have to ask whoever prepared this.
Understood.
I'm asking, I thought
That's
you
a 10-year
prepared this.
I don't prepare this, I prepare the budget. That's not the budget, that's a 10-year plan.
Wasn't the line item.
So who prepares this?
I'm guessing engineering.
Okay.
Work is magic.
Mr. Mayor wants to jump in here.
And I would just say, I think, if you think back, I think this was the first meeting for the new council members in 2024, but we kind of had the same situation come up with regards to Christmas Run Pool. Because the previous council, at the end of '23, in the '23 budget, had approved a budget that had money set aside for Christmas Run Pool. But then within the first meeting or two of 2024, when the new council members were in place, the actual ordinance to approve going out to bid for that pool came before you, and we had a pretty lengthy discussion about the difference between, including the allocation in a budget versus actually going out and bidding the project. And I think that, so there was some angst about, okay, just because the prior council voted to approve a budget that had an allocation, does that tie our hands as council going forward to that? And we said, no. If you remember that.
Yep, I remember it.
Because
I think I was probably the one that had the most heartburn about it.
I think we,
I think I learned a lesson on that one.
well, I think that was one piece of $14 million worth of appropriation that was on the same agenda. And I think the cumulative effect choked you up a little bit. But again, not to talk to the side, but I think we kind of hashed that out pretty well at the time, making it clear that just because it's allocated for, it doesn't matter what we're talking about here, the next council whoever's sitting at the time when it comes to forum's got an opportunity to vote on that as they feel appropriate at the time.
Understood. Okay. Well, we do have a little bit of time. Does anyone from council have any additional questions, comments that they'd like to talk to the administration about when it comes to the budget?
I have a question, and forgive me if I missed this in the conversation previously, but I know at one point we were budgeting for pretty significant capital improvements to the community center. Is that off the table now? Or did I just overlook it?
No, I saw it in here, Jen. Yeah.
I know there's $100,000 roof repair. I know that's on page.
Now, if you go to 4-6, 4-7.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about future stuff?
Yeah, it's in the 10-year.
That's that 10-year plan, so.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
At some point, so we're just throwing it out there, at some point in the next 10 years, we'll probably have to address the community center at some point, so, like, that's what I said, that's just for planning purposes, and the further out it is, the less definitely we're going to do it to happen. And obviously, there'd be a lot of steps to that if we pursue that, but feedback, public meetings, before we can put it in the budget for whatever year that would be.
Just curious, on page 4.8, under the Winkler Oldman Burbank Road roundabout, the $3 million, it's not until 2027, but it says it's TIF funded.
So
Which TIF would we be using for that?
it could potentially be TIF funded, be eligible for TIF fund. Right now, there's not enough money to pay for that, with all the other improvements that we had, the sewer and the other roadway improvements we did. If, or when the Weaver development happens, and they've submitted preliminary plans for that, the planning commission. If the Harsax one were to go forward, which is behind Lowe's there north of Milltown, if those both happened as well, and they were fully built out, there could potentially be some money available to fund a portion of that. So it'd probably be better just to say eligible, TIF eligible potential. That's gonna depend on if things are built, if there's enough money left over to cover it.
Any additional questions or comments?
I have one more question, and actually I could ask Jason, is there a special fund for, from the opioid settlements that is also dedicated to the hospital? I know within the ER there's some addiction treatment opportunities there. Is any of that funding going to be able to be driven to that project?
Although, as far as completion of the project that we have now, no, that is the hospital or
Okay.
up there that we have. As far as what additional we can do, we would have those discussions and talk through that. But as far as the area and everything that would be ready to go in February to go live, that's already funded and paid for.
Okay.
With our process. Based on the tour, so,
Yeah,
yeah, yep. All that'll be built up, ready to go.
Great.
February.
All righty. Anything additional? All right, well, with that, I will call close to the Finance Committee meeting. Thank you.